Hi, I'm Ken.
Hi, I'm John.
And
we are All About Tools. And Ken's back from his wedding.
Not my wedding.
Well, not
my
his
son
wedding.
Gregory and
Yes.
his bride now.
And he's still crying about how expensive it was.
Oh, and it was painful. But anyway, welcome from hot, steamy,
Yes.
gooey Florida today.
Yep. And it was storming a while ago. We weren't sure if we were going to get on the air tonight.
But we made it, and
That's
we're
right.
here. And boy, do we have some cool stuff to talk about
Caulking.
tonight.
Caulking. And
Yeah.
more sanding.
Yeah, more
Just
sanding.
when you thought it was safe to sand.
Danny Homerick comes up with another idea.
Yes, another idea.
And,
One that's all brand new. So you're going to have to stay tuned. That's in our last episode.
And
Right.
we won't even tell them about the E-stone sanding technique that Danny's come up with.
That's right. We won't.
But that's another sanding thing, but that's not
right.
for solid surface. That's for
right.
E-stone.
Absolutely.
But it's great to be back. I missed not being here, and I guess it was a good show. Shows you don't need me.
Well, Joel did a fine job.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. And but tonight we're going to talk about caulk.
Yes.
And we actually have quite a bit here to talk about. So I guess we might as well just jump right into it.
You want to grab a seat and we'll just sit down and talk about caulk?
Oh, hey.
We'll talk caulk. How's that sound?
Okay.
All right, very good.
See how I guide myself away
And we're
from
going to
those
talk
problems.
about caulking guns.
Yep, that'll be in the
and-
second segment.
Yep.
In the first segment, we're going to talk primarily about caulk. In the second one, we'll talk about caulking guns and techniques.
Right. And this is another boring subject, but it's one of those you really need to know it. And a lot of people really don't know the difference between caulks. You and I have both learned a lot today. You probably more than I, and I will probably learn a bunch tonight in the show. Because Ken does all the research.
But no, there is a lot to learn about caulk. Just a phenomenal amount of information. One of the things that I wanted to show was this is probably the one caulk that everybody is really familiar with, and this is just a latex caulk.
Right.
And this has its limitations without a doubt. Probably the biggest reason why people will use a latex caulk is because it's
Easy cleanup.
and paintable.
Right. Now, this is also available, latex with silicone in it.
Or siliconized.
Siliconized, yes. And it's also paintable and washable cleanup.
But siliconized doesn't mean that it is 100% silicone.
That's
caulk.
correct. It does not.
And so you would have to treat the introduction of the acrylic latex into the silicone as a substantial modifier to what the silicone is.
Okay.
And that's something more we're going to talk about is what goes into the caulk itself and how it really alters its performance. So for you guys that use the... Oh, you're killing me, man. For you guys that use the latex caulks, if you're gluing solid surface down with this, you're making a mistake. It's really not good for stone either.
Right.
It's a very poor
This is
bond.
like trim, house
Exactly.
trim and,
This is really a
interior.
filler. It's very much of a filler.
I used a lot of that when I did my molding.
So when it falls down in a couple of years. But latex caulk, once again, a common, been around forever.
Right.
We really want to get into the silicones tonight because I think among the trades, especially in the area of surfacing, silicone really is the primary creature.
Right.
Now, once again, carpenters, cabinet makers, you guys that do laminate work, hey, the common animal you're going to use is latex, but that's really not where we wanted to go tonight.
Right.
So we're going to kind of move away from that. Essentially, to kind of bring you up to speed on silicone, there is, or one of the things you want to pay attention when you get a caulk is that it's 100% silicone.
Why is that?
Because it's going to maintain the greatest amount of integrity as far as the performance of it.
And it's always going to stay like rubbery?
Yes, it will retain that elasticity.
Okay.
Once again, it could be pointed out that you can get an acrylic caulk and people say, oh, well, this is silicone.
Mm-hmm. But it's not.
But siliconized doesn't equate to silicone. And that's very important. You have to realize that anything that just because it has the word silicone on it doesn't make it 100% silicone caulk.
Right.
The first type we're going to talk about is an an RTV, which is an acetoxy caulk.
Acetoxy?
Acetoxy.
And what does that mean?
And it basically has an acetone component to it.
Oh, that's the one that smells.
Yes, it actually has a very strong vinegary smell.
Yeah.
And most people, when you talk about caulk, that is really what the first thing they relate to it is that strong, really vinegary odor that is, some people find it repugnant. But it helps to define a certain type of caulk. Because I used the word repugnant.
No.
That's
Okay.
a smell that people don't like.
That's right.
In John's world.
Absolutely.
But that is a caulk that is commonly used, especially in kitchens, in commercial environments, and especially restaurants. And that's because it is the one silicone that is both FDA and USDA approved. So it's something to pay attention.
Okay.
If you're doing a job that is going
So it can be used around food?
Exactly.
Great.
Exactly.
Okay.
That is the important thing. So if you're going to do a job, in a residential kitchen, I don't think it's not that critical.
Right.
But if you're in a commercial application, you very much want to pay attention, and probably it's prudent to use an RTV caulk. Most architects will actually spec that.
Okay.
So you want to pay attention to that. Now, a couple things about caulks. Caulks or especially silicones, are essentially a silicone that has...
There's nothing funny about this. I'm sitting here trying to think. There is nothing funny about this. It's just
just that you're
a
a funny
boring item.
But it's a cool thing to talk about, I think.
Okay.
I get excited about stuff like this, but I guess I'm weird.
Okay.
But the caulk itself, essentially, it has modifiers and promoters in it. It's not really dissimilar from how solid surface is made. That was the one thing that, as I researched this, the more I got into it, I was amazed the chemistry is not different from solid surface as it's being made.
Mm-hmm.
There are pigments added for coloring, which you could call a modifier.
Right. Let me ask you this, Ken. When it says 100% silicone, at that point, does it matter whose brand you're buying? Is all silicone the same?
No. Very much not.
Okay.
And that's why you need to pay attention to some of the designations. There's an acetoxy, which is what we have here, which is called an RTV.
Okay.
And you'll see that name actually on a couple different caulks. This Axiom right here calls itself as an RTV. This is an RTV. We actually have most of these
They're
are
all
RTVs.
RTVs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they identify themselves as such.
So would they be equal?
Yes, they are going to be very, very close.
Okay.
Their performance characteristics. Now, the subtle difference will be the types of pigment used into it.
Well, but I mean, from a
pigment to color
silicone
it.
standpoint, it's not like there's a special formula for one silicone or another. 100% silicone is 100% silicone.
No, an RTV silicone.
Well, okay, excuse me, an RTV.
Will be very much alike. But then there are also neutral cure silicones. Now, a neutral cure has different characteristics.
Okay.
It doesn't have a plasticizers in it.
Plasticizer. You're making up words again.
No. Yeah, well, sometimes it's slurred up. I put something in my tea. A plasticizer. So once again, in the neutral cure caulks, they have different agents in them. They tend not to have the plasticizer in it. They also have or not have in them petroleum distillants.
Okay.
That's why the different odor and how it will react with materials. To give you a very specific example, a neutral cure caulk, which we don't have here tonight, but it's something that we're bringing in. A neutral cure caulk is perfect for stone because it tends not to migrate.
Stone being granite and marbles and
porous
natural
materials.
stones. Okay.
Exactly. It tends not to migrate. However, it is important that you always test any piece of material prior to really going into somebody's house. So if you're using something like, let's say, a soapstone or a marble, which is very, very porous, it might be prudent before you go in the field and run it on the customer's counter that you just draw a test bead in your shop. If you can do it even up to a week prior to, because 7 days will deliver 100% cure with the silicone.
Okay.
5 to 7 days gets you into a very safe margin.
Realistically, guys, you're not going to do that. So.
But even if you can do a 24-hour test,
Yeah.
you're going to be roughly at 90 to 95% cure.
Okay.
So if you can at least do that, that's to your
We have 8
benefit.
minutes left, and we have 9 tubes of caulk to show. So let's start shooting.
Okay. So all right. But anyway, back to one point that I wanted to really wanted to get the definition done. A neutral cure caulk is extremely good to use with stone, plastics, PVCs,
And a neutral cure caulk we do not have tonight.
We do not have tonight, but it is something that we do have.
Okay. All right.
Essentially, to give you an example, this product right here could be either an RTV or a neutral cure, and the only difference would be really kind of 85% of the two products is identical.
Okay.
It's just as about a 15% differential, and that delivers the slightly different characteristics.
Okay.
But coloring and all that would still be
Now,
the
what
same.
makes all of these different? Let's shoot them out and
Okay.
we'll take a look.
I think for the most part, you're not going to really see a whole lot of difference. Why don't we grab a box and throw it under here real quick, and we can tilt it up for the camera. There we go. This right here.
You want to use this gun?
Sure.
We'll be talking about guns in the next segment, so.
Okay, well, I didn't do it on this one, but one of the things I wanted to make sure that people saw is one of the things I have always done is the way to cut a tip is to first of all make your first cut at about a 45-degree angle going back. Now, a good friend of mine always used to say caulk is a sealant. It's not a filler.
Right.
So you want to cut the smallest hole as possible.
So like the big white line around my bathtub is not supposed to be there?
Is not desirable.
Okay.
But after I've cut a 45 or roughly 45 degree back this way, I go to either edge and I cut those just slightly back like that. And what that does is it allows me to get that tip down into that little crevice.
Okay.
And then the last thing I do is I go back, and from the reverse side of where I cut the 45, I'll take and I'll cut the end of the tip off, so I actually end up with a very small.
Oh, so you leave just a little bit of material.
But you see that little tiny? Yeah.
Okay.
So I can't force it all out.
Okay.
Great way to cut a tip, and we'll do it one more time when we get to that segment.
Okay.
But this right here is a clear.
So now that actually, I mean, from here, I can see right through that. I can see the pigment over here. Mm-hmm. So it is crystal clear. Now, does it dry crystal clear?
Yes, an RTV will.
Okay.
Now, with some of the neutral cures, you have to be careful, because if you get an acetone...
This one here that you just used, this is a Dow Corning.
That is a Dow Corning, which we sell this very commonly for the glue down of countertops.
Okay.
This right here is a white. Once again,
these tubes, by the way, will all be for sale at a discount after the show. Now that's a solid white, and this is also Dow Corning?
That is correct.
Okay.
And this is actually one of the, I think it's just a phenomenal color right here. If I can use the word color, it's really not that accurate. But this right here is a translucent white. And the benefit to this color is, if you look at it, it almost seems opaque there. Except when you take, and let me take a small bead of this here and smear it out, you can actually see when it's smeared out, you can see right through it. It almost appears to be clear.
So what would the difference be between using that and a clear?
Because this has enough pigment in it to
Okay.
where it doesn't make it opaque. It lets the color behind it come through.
Okay.
But instead of allowing and completely relying on that color to bleed through there, if you have a perfectly tight joint, clear would work fine. But if you have very small, tiny gaps,
Wouldn't it draw hard?
if you had small gaps, this one right here will tend to hide those gaps. They won't be prominent. Yes.
We'll get some fun out of this yet.
I know you're working hard. You're really
Yes.
working. But
I'm really stretching here.
But these are the Dow Corning tubes, and we have those. Those sell by the case only. 12
Okay.
tubes to a case.
All right.
But
Well, they're inexpensive enough that you wouldn't buy one tube at a time.
no, and once again, guys commonly use these for glue downs. You know, if you're doing a shower job and you need white, it's a great.
Now, hand me one of those tubes a second. I see that these have a removable tip.
which is very desirable.
This is cool because what happens is this dries in the tip, which actually seals this. All right. then when you're ready to use it again, you can take this out and actually pull this plug out of
Correct.
here.
You can actually feed something that way, and since this is your narrow end, you'll drive it out.
Okay, so would it be safe to say that your better caulks come resealable? Because a lot of them don't.
No, and that would be an inexpensive. This packaging system is certainly more money.
Okay, all right.
But
So
it's
you're
more
paying
desirable.
for that. Okay.
But you're right. It's a more desirable feature. One of the things to always pay attention to is once you open a tube, you've immediately shortened its shelf life.
I was just going to ask you, what can you expect once you open a tube? I mean, I've tried putting duct tape on them. I put a wood screw in it. I've done everything, and yet it seems like the next time I go to use it, it's hard.
How you store caulk is important because...
Turning off your cell phone before the show is also important.
Oh, man.
Actually, I guess I better turn mine off as
go,
well.
Please call 555.
I guess Ken's buying the beer.
Okay, here's another colored caulk. We sell a lot of this.
We've got just a couple of minutes, Ken.
This is Axiom. This is the Axiom. Now, the Axioms tend to be much, I don't want to say opaque, but certainly more along that line. But they're colored caulk. These come in several different colors.
Now, they're translucent as well.
To a degree, not quite as much because there'll be a little bit more pigment to give it its color. But as you can see, it still does allow for bleed through.
Okay. Now, don't some of these allow the color to come up through some of the Axioms?
To a degree. The key important or the key feature with any of these colored caulks is, as with any caulk, is to leave as little caulk behind as possible.
Okay.
You really want to focus on that. So this still lets the color bleed through. It definitely affects how this color appears. But you can see if I took the white here, oh gosh, there we go. You can see the white. The white does not. I'm gonna get rid of my daughter once and for all. The white.
She's probably watching the show.
No, she probably is. The white, as you can see, is far more opaque. It doesn't allow the bleed through that those do. There's just more pigment present here.
All right. These are available in a lot of different colors.
Yes, in a lot of different colors.
8 or 10 different colors. I'm not sure how many, but...
I'm sure at least. Now, let me show you this one right here. Now, here's another.
Ooh, that's nice. It's like a blue.
Well, that gets you excited, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, let's just lay
It's kind of like the ocean.
Now, there you go. Once again, you can see here, if I take some of this, it is going to have, you can see each one of them have a degree of translucency to them, but they affect how the solid surface looks underneath that. And I don't know if you're able to get that well in the camera.
Then the idea on the Axiom and that type of product is that you're going to pick a color that's closest to your countertop?
Mm-hmm. Okay. That will work in a very compatible fashion.
All right.
Now, here's a new product that we've just taken on. It's very much like the Axiom, but just that it's got a really good price point. Now, my understanding is essentially the formulations are identical. They're both RTVs. So I'm going to draw a bead of this right next to the that one. A little bit deeper tone.
Okay.
But as with everything we do, we kind of do it live on the show, so we don't know how this will come out. But as you can see,
very similar. Yeah,
I would say just a little bit deeper tone.
All right. Also available in
many colors.
Many colors.
Pretty much the same color range as the Axiom.
Okay.
And then we get into now. This right here is a product we also carry, and I'm not going to draw a bead of it out because it essentially would be very much like these three.
Okay.
It's an RTV 100% silicone caulk. It's colored. It comes in a wide variety or wide range of colors, but essentially it's a repeat of that.
Okay.
Now here's a real interesting caulk, and this one is very much like the Polysil. This is a particulated caulk, as is this one. The difference is the price point on this one is just phenomenal. But you can see as I squirt this out, and I'll draw a really wide bead on this one because I just really want people to see.
Oh, that's how I caulk.
Yeah, this is.
Look at that. So this actually looks like the stone.
Exactly. Yeah, it's got the particle in it.
It's got particles right in it.
Exactly.
That's really cool. And it's
see,
actually gritty.
like your teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, you take it.
Like if you got sand in your teeth.
Yeah, as you can see, actually, if I put it on here, it does have translucency to it, and you can see it completely alters this. Now, of course, this you want to pick something that, in this case, you want to pick one that matches what you're going to caulk it on. The benefit to this is when you do showers or splashes, and you really don't want to leave an appearance like a caulk line.
Okay.
Because of the particle in it, this makes that caulk line virtually disappear. Or if you're caught in a spot where you're trying to fill a slight void in a shower or something, you know, now we're not talking an 1/8 of an inch void, that's not desirable. But a 1/16 or less, this will certainly provide a very
Not
forgiving
desirable,
characteristic.
but you know that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
so now just for instance, very quickly before we go to break, when you're doing something like a shower, I guess, well, never mind. We're going to go into that during application, so that's fine. Okay. I guess we're going to go to break, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
SpecialtyTools.com would like to take this opportunity to unveil our boldest new venture, epitomizing the glorious traditions held so dear by craftsmen throughout the centuries. Our informative and enlightening seminars represent the pinnacle in only the most professional of productions.
Right, not four. Go! Look at that. Works fine.
Actually, John, this is a shop cloth holder. See, I told you he wasn't real bright, folks. See? It's one of those clamps in our line that we've had for a long time, and, you know, it has its uses, of course, but especially...
Last week.
No. Chris said we did that for the promo. You're going to drop this down. I'm sorry, folks. This is for laminating, plastic laminate.
We started out with a dog and we ended with Chihuahua.
Yes, like Santa.
And I look like a fool. Have a little shame.
Drop it in the water.
Are we going to go off?
I'm sorry. I hate my job.